President Putin was asked about his thoughts on the Tomahawks and whether or not the U.S. will supply these to Ukraine. This is such an attempt at escalation. Weapons are used to strike Russian territory. The response will be very serious, if not to say devastating. Let them think about it. If I was Macron, if I was Ursula von der Leyen, sitting in my mega mansion in Europe, I would not want to hear those words come out of the mouth of President Putin. Yesterday, there was a story from the Wall Street Journal which claimed that Trump lifted long-range missile restrictions for the Ukrainian military to strike deep into Russia. That story came out last night, and I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is a salacious story. This is interesting. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what long-range missile restrictions really are there? Okay, what are we talking about? Because Ukraine has regularly done these long-range drone strikes into Russia. They constantly are trying to do missile strikes into Russian territory, albeit, not long-range strikes. One has to wonder how many Storm Shadows they have in their arsenal right now, if any. And they don't have they don't have the long range missiles from the United States. They don't have these Tomahawk missiles. So what restrictions are there on Ukrainian strikes? I don't know. I don't know if there are any. We oftentimes hear these stories. We've heard these stories in the past. Oh, they're about to lift the restrictions on long range strikes. It's like, are there any? I remember a few years ago, Ukraine was like, drone striking, residential apartment buildings in Moscow City. So what restrictions are there? That's my first question. Then, not too long after, about an hour after the story dropped in the Wall Street Journal, Trump came out and said, it's fake news. He said the Wall Street Journal story on the USA's approval of Ukraine being allowed to use long-range missiles deep into Russia is fake news. The U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, wherever they may come from, or what Ukraine does with them. Now, there is a possibility that Ukraine does have long-range missiles. I don't know how long-range. The Storm Shadows, there's limitations on how far those can actually go. And if they were to launch those right now, it would not be with U.S. consent or support, presumably. This would be with support from the United Kingdom, or maybe the Germans, or maybe the French. I don't know. Emmanuel Macron has kind of shifted. At the beginning, he was trying to be the diplomat. Macron was trying to be the diplomat with Putin. Now he's kind of gone like full anti-Russia, along with the rest of these EU and NATO crazies. But so anyways, Trump said this is fake news. But we have this video from Trump a few days ago describing a phone call with President Putin about, the Tomahawks, the long-range missiles. And I love this video for a number of reasons. It's hilarious. But there's something I want you to see here. And it's going to explain why Ukraine is not going to get the Tomahawks.
Right, but did President Putin try to dissuade you from selling Tomahawk missiles?
Well, of course. What do you think he's going to say? Please sell Tomahawks?
No, but did he give any
Is he going to say, please sell those Tomahawks? I really appreciate it. I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. No, I said it that way. Yeah.
He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. He's kind of laughing, remembering just how much President Putin didn't like the idea of selling Tomahawks, which would end up in the hands of the Ukrainians. Now, why is that? Why is it that Putin is so upset about the Tomahawk missiles? Is it just that they are long-range missiles and he doesn't want to have to utilize, air defenses in Moscow for missile strikes? No, that's not the answer. The answer is that Tomahawk missiles are nuclear-capable missiles. So depending on the warhead, these, nuclear capable. The U.S. claimed that they got rid of, nuclear warheads that are, attached to these Tomahawk missiles long ago. But I happen to not believe them. Also, you know, it's like you could strap a dirty bomb to it. Who knows what you could do? I'm sure that the options are absolutely limitless. Now, if a nuclear Tomahawk missile was launched at Russia, if a nuclear Tomahawk was launched at Moscow, there would be no way of knowing once it's flying up in the air. And I mean, Moscow would not be able to identify it. They'll see it on the radar that a Tomahawk is approaching Moscow, but they'll have no idea if it is a nuclear Tomahawk or if it is not a nuclear Tomahawk. The Russian nuclear doctrine, the triad, which was just tested yesterday, by the way, land, air, and sea, is very clear about this sort of situation. If a nuclear threat is posed to the Russian Federation, they have a way of dealing with this. And it wouldn't be pretty for Ukraine. Not sure Ukraine would be left after that. Wouldn't be pretty for Europe, for Western Europe either. The nuclear triad is pointed at every single major Western city. So if there is a threat to the Russian Federation, a nuclear threat, the response would be total from the Russian Federation. So the idea of sending Tomahawks to Ukraine, it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, you're not going to like, no one is going to like the ramifications. In fact, no one will be able to reflect on the results of this really bad decision because you won't have the ability to do so. Maybe Mark Zuckerberg will be in his bunker in Hawaii or New Zealand, wherever he's got it, and he'll be able to reflect on the decision of sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. But those of us normal folk that don't have, underground nuclear bunkers, we are not going to be able to reflect on that decision. Okay. Donald Trump also explained the decision not to send Tomahawks by stating this, which I think is an excellent point and clarifies that the U.S. is not going to be a part of this and would have to be a part of this in a very big way if we sent Tomahawks to Ukraine.
Well, the problem with the Tomahawk that a lot of people don't know, it'll take a minimum of 6 months, usually a year, to learn how to use them. They're highly complex. So the only way a Tomahawk is going to be shot is if we shot it, and we're not going to do that.
So it takes 6 months to train the Ukrainians. The only way it'd be shot is if the U.S. did it. Okay, makes sense. The U.S. does not want to accept a nuclear responsibility or the extremely schizophrenic leadership of Ukraine, putting that in their hands, putting the ball in their court, the nuclear ball in their court. I mean, that's basically giving Ukraine the ability to fire, at the very least, a dirty bomb at Moscow. That's not something that's going to happen. But Zelensky is so crazy that he's still saying that he wants this.
The result of this meeting, what can I say? And we'll not go to details. So the result of this meeting, we have sanctions on Russian energy. We don't have meeting in Hungary without Ukraine. And we have not yet Tomahawks. That's it. This is the result. I think not bad. We will see. I don't know, really. Each day brings something. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. We will have Tomahawks.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever give Ukraine Tomahawks, because that's basically, from the point of view of the Russians, that's basically giving them a nuclear-capable device that can be pointed and fired directly at Moscow. Something tells me that that's not going to happen, okay? Even Biden. I don't think Biden would even do that. President Putin was asked about his thoughts on the Tomahawks and whether or not the U.S. will supply these to Ukraine. He was asked about that just about 2 hours ago. This is what he had to say. This is such an attempt at escalation. Weapons are used to strike Russian territory. The response will be very serious, if not to say devastating. Let them think about it. Yeah, I don't know. If I was Macron, if I was Ursula von der Leyen, you know, sitting in my mega mansion in Europe, I would not want to hear those words come out of the mouth of President Putin and then have to supply Ukraine Tomahawks. I wouldn't do it. I think even the most lunatic people on the face of the earth understand that a quote unquote devastating response from the Russian Federation in the event of a nuclear threat is not something that you want to mess around with. But these people are crazy. You never know. You never know what could happen. And it's very possible that they might do it. Now, the last part of this I want to show you is Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, was paraded around in the White House today. He met with Trump. And our good friend Liam Cosgrove, journalist at the Gray Zone, he was there to ask Mark Rutte a question. And no, I love the way that Liam Cosgrove asks his questions when he's in these press pools, because he just keeps talking and spilling out truth bombs until someone shuts him up, because he knows that these clips are going to go viral, and that it did. I say thank God for Liam Cosgrove and his courage in the face of the criminality of NATO and the U.S. government and what they're doing to the Russians and also to the Ukrainians, using them as cannon fodder. Take a listen to this clip, holding Mark Rutte's feet to the fire, and really, right in front of Trump, saying, like, you know, Mark Rutte is here to try and screw over the United States. They're trying to use you for their ends to make more money and kill more people and ruin your relationship with the Russians. Take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Liam Cosgrove is here. My question is actually for the Secretary General.
Yes.
Mr. Secretary, I don't know if you've seen this, but polling out of Ukraine shows a massive collapse in Ukrainian support for the war. A Gallup poll had it just 23%. That's less than a quarter. Zelensky came out today praising President Trump's proposal for freezing the front lines of battle as part of a ceasefire. He said that's a good compromise. So people view your coming here as, you know, you're lobbying the U.S. government to continue its involvement in the war. You're obviously lobbying for more NATO weapons to be sent to Ukraine, but Ukrainians themselves don't want to fight the war. So how do you justify that morally?
Well, I'm lobbying only for one thing, and that is to make sure that we end this war. And I don't have to lobby the president, because we totally agree on this. And this is what he has been doing from day one. Everything he could do to break the deadlock with Putin, get a dialogue going, dialoguing also with Zelensky, and getting this war done. It's crucial. And the fact that the US is
Masterclass in bullshit from Mark Rutte. But Liam Cosgrove fact checks him in real time. Wait 1 second, you'll hear it.
now supplying weapons into
And Trump actually agreed with Liam Cosgrove. Trump is like, he's like, you got a great point, Liam.
Ukraine, paid for by allies, is extremely important, and that's now happening since 2-3 months. About 2 billion moving into Ukraine.
The war hasn't wind down. Why do you think that'll wind it down now? More
What do you mean?
weapons?
What do you mean? You're here to lobby to send more weapons to Ukraine. What do you mean? What do you mean? How is that gonna help anything? How is that gonna help peace? If you want peace, say, I, Mark Rutte, I'm going to host the meeting. I'm going to make sure that we host the meeting. Poland's not going to shoot Putin's plane out of the sky as he goes to Hungary to try and meet Putin and meet Trump in Budapest. It's like, do something other than providing more bombs to the Ukrainians if you want peace. So Liam Cosgrove responds here.
Do you think more weapons will wind down the war?
No, I mean, there's more to
Do you think more weapons will wind down the war? Of course not.
be done. So what you need, what the president said this weekend, stop where you are. So basically do a ceasefire and then have all your discussions about terror.
Do a ceasefire. So if you're going to do a ceasefire, why do you need more bombs for Ukraine? Why do you need more bombs for Ukraine if the number one thing is do a ceasefire? Because the temporary ceasefire idea is just that. Do a temporary ceasefire, rearm Ukraine, and then have Ukraine restart the war. Say that the negotiations were not to our liking. We're going to restart the war and continue bombing the Donbass. That's why.
Territory and whatever. But first, stop the war. This is what you said on Friday and on Sunday.
It's a war. I mean, your question's really a fair one. It's a war that should have never started. And you know how I feel about it. But it's a war that should have never started. And we're not selling any weapons to Ukraine. We're selling them to NATO.
Yeah.
which is different from before with.
Not really different. You sell Tomahawks to NATO, where are they going to end up? Everyone knows. Ukraine. Even Trump has admitted that.
Biden, he just gave $350 billion worth of weapons and cash right into Ukraine, and that was so foolish. But we sell them to NATO, and in theory, you can do what you want with them. It doesn't have to be Ukraine, but probably it is mostly.
No, what nations are doing now is buying from this program and making sure that the supplies in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's not any different. It's literally not any different.
For Europeans and Canadians, and for example, these are interceptors for the Patriot systems, crucial to protect the cities. Today, again, a Russian.
The Patriot missiles are not crucial for anything. They haven't stopped Russian missiles for the past nearly 4 years. I don't think Patriot missiles are going to stop anything now.
Attack has killed children, at least seriously wounded children in kindergarten in Ukraine. So we need to make sure that the air defense systems are in place, and we need.
The life longevity of the Patriot missiles in Ukrainian cities is shorter than the conscripts that they're scraping off the street, sending to the front line. Like, Patriot missiles, not going to change anything. We know that Roots is there only for the Tomahawks. That's what he cares about. So shout out Liam Cosgrove doing the Lord's work, trying to save all these people that are dying in this NATO proxy war. We need peace. Trump needs to wash his hands clean of this conflict, settle a peace. Whatever happens to Zelensky, it's not Trump's problem. Not Trump's problem. He didn't start this war, but if he continues it as he is right now, providing, for example, satellites for the Ukrainian, this Elon Musk Starlink, military Starlink satellite system for the Ukrainians so they can continue attacking the Russians, continue this war. If it wasn't for the military grade Starlink, Ukraine wouldn't be able to fight a war. So this, I say this is his war now. This is Trump's war now. Blood is on his hands. He's the one with the ability to stop it. He's not stopping it.